All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is going to be a demonstration and walkthrough of installing and using Havoc, the Havoc command and control platform. We are using a configuration where the team server is going to be on an Ubuntu machine and the client machine will be installed on a Kali Linux machine. We'll be attacking a Windows 10 machine using a payload referred to as a daemon from the Havoc system. So first, we want to test and make sure that everything is on the same network so that we don't have a mistake where something is not communicating with the other. So I will do an IP config. So we are on the 245 subnet. Okay, this is good. Okay, so all three machines are good. I already checked, so they're all on the network, so everything should be set up and good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up launch the team server. That Havoc is written in 3 languages: for Golang, Python, and I believe C. And there's, as I said, there's the 2 primary components to it. You have the team server and you have a client piece. The whole program can be installed on one machine, but it becomes quite cumbersome and really irritating and painful to install all on one. And it requires all kinds of dependencies. So the easiest way to do this almost seems to be installing one component on a machine, such as an Ubuntu machine, the team server, and a machine like Kali, where the client is already part of its infrastructure. All you have to do is install it from the command line. So I have already installed these on both, but I will go over how to install the client. So I'm going to start the team server. And when we do our exercise with this the rest of the week, I'm going to zip up the Ubuntu machine and I will put it on my Dropbox account, and you can download it to one of these machines, and you'll be doing all the setup for it starting Wednesday. But we have to go into the root of the Havoc folder in order to run the team server. So we will change directory. Into the Havoc directory, and we'll see if it's saved. Nope. So I will I forgot. You have to be root to run this. So that's one step I forgot. So I will do a sudo su. So this is what the team server looks like when you run it. And once it starts, you can basically just leave it as it is, and you won't have to come back and touch it unless something fails with it. So I'm just going to minimize this. And then we can come back to our Kali Linux machine, and this is where we are going to install the client piece. So I will open up this, and I will also get to root here. And if you are going to install the client piece, which you'll be doing on Wednesday with your local versions of Kali Linux, you just simply, if you're at root, you'll simply put in apt install Havoc. If you are And I would encourage you probably to just do everything at root for this. If not, you just do sudo apt install Havoc. It's already installed on mine, so it's not going to go through the motions. But once it is installed, to launch the client piece, you'll simply type Havoc client. When you first install the client and run it, you're going to get a window that looks like this, sort of purple and black. And then you're going to have to put some information in the window so that it connects to the team server that we just launched a minute ago. You can give it a name, whatever you want to call it. I just called mine client. And the host, it should autofill. This is the IP address of the Ubuntu machine that we're using as our team server. So if that does not autofill, you just get the IP address of the Ubuntu machine and you put it in the host box. The port for the client is going to be 40056. This is according to a profile file that is on the Ubuntu machine. Actually, no, it's on, is it? Yes, it's on the Ubuntu machine. So it's a .yaotl file. And when you open that file, it's going to have two default users defined in it. One of them is called Neo, the other is called Spider. The author of Havoc, his handle is Spider something, C Spider or some Spider something. And he's actually got his own Discord site actually for community support, asking questions. But there are two full default accounts on there. One of them is Neo, the other is Spider, but the passwords for both of those are the same. That is password 123, I think it's 1234. So once you first launch this and you put the information in, it should save it. So Neo or Spider, password 1234 or 12345, you have to check. But then once that is in there, you click connect, and then you will have the default dashboard come up. I have to delete these. Apparently they, all the old things I worked on are just still popping up, so I will remove these older beacons that I had. No. So this is the default view that you're going to get. You're going to have three windows, and a few of them you can actually adjust the size of the font. This one up here in the right corner, you can adjust. What this is good for is if you have more than one person that is connected to the team server and you want to do a team effort. This is where your messages are going to be sent to each other. They actually have a little tab when you open new items within this dashboard. The tabs are going to appear here in the middle. You have this one tab labeled Team Server Chat. So if you have multiple people, this is where you're going to be sending your chat message. You'll see in the bottom, the name Neo is up here. You can type up, I'll see if it actually comes up. Yeah, the chat will show up here, and you'll probably see other people's chats come up here in this window. But as you make your connections, new tabs will show up. But the first thing we want to do when we are first connected with our with the team server and with our dashboard is we need to create a listener. Some of the steps we're going to do here are going to be similar to what we did with Metasploit. Some of them will be different. In this case, it's going to be different. We're first creating a listener. In Metasploit, we would create a payload with MSF Venom. But here, we will first go to View and go to Listeners. And here I've already created one. I'm going to create another one just to show you how it's made. So down here at the bottom, you'll see an add, remove, and edit. So I'm actually going to get rid of this one. So I'll remove. So if I want to create one, I will just go to add, and the Create Listener window will appear. You could give it a name, whatever you want to call it. And you have 4 options for the type of payload that you can use with this listener. The 2 most popular are going to be HTTPS or HTTP. SMB, remember, is server message block, and that is for resource sharing. So, and I do not know exactly what the external is used for, but most of the use cases I've seen used with Havoc all use the HTTPS. So you can pick HTTPS as the operative payload. I usually just leave the default for host rotation. And if you have, well, your team server should automatically populate in here. And you can also change your port numbers. By default, if you're using HTTPS, it's going to go to port 443. You can try it with other ports, just like you did with Metasploit when we were picking random other port numbers. So you can, like 7777 or 23456. I will leave it at the default for right now. So you would click Save, and now you have your listener created, and it's going to stay in its passive state until we create a payload of some kind, and then the payload will connect back to this listener that we've launched. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Attack and then Payload. As I mentioned, the Havoc calls its payloads daemons. And then there's a distinction made once it launches successfully. I believe they refer to it as a beacon. It will start giving you callbacks. You'll start getting information about the machine that you're connected to. And there is a command that you can run when you're connected, and you can actually interact with it. You can just say check-in. It will give you information that ensures that the connection between you and your remote host is still good. So from this, it's going to automatically connect to the last listener that's there. If you have more than one listener set up, you can pick whatever listener you want. You have to pick the Windows architecture that you're dealing with. Most likely it's going to be 64-bit, kind of like we did with MSF Venom. We had to specify x64 for the payload. And for formats, we have executables, DLLs, shellcode, and service executables. Remember, the service executable is what we used in 455 when we were creating persistence. We were creating a service that we could move over to Windows that would run in the background. I actually tried creating a DLL here, and it did not work. In one case, this is actually the DLL does not work, and I could get it to work using MSF Venoms. So that is one instance where Metasploit is actually better than Havoc in this case. Shellcode we're going to use in a little bit after I get our connection. We're going to make our initial connection with an executable. We are going to do, once we have that, I'm going to do shellcode injection. So first, I will get so we have a Windows executable 64-bit attaching to our initial listener. We'll click Generate. And when I did this walkthrough earlier today, there was an initial problem with where Havoc actually saved the payload to. So I had to actually, I think by default it saves it to the root directory. So I'm just going to go open the root, and then I'm going to put it in the Apache folder, because that's where we're going to host it when we use curl to move it over to the Windows computer. And you also notice that the size of the payload is going to be a little smaller than what MSF Venom was. So here you'll see the default is root, and the default name that it gives to the daemon is daemon.x64. I'm just going to call mine payload. And it's going to save to the root. I'm going to move this out of the way. Let's see. So I'm going to this is the Apache 2 folder, so I'll move that to the side. Remember, we have to open that as root so we can move files into it. And then I'm going to go back into here because we saved, well, actually, Havoc by default saved our daemon into the root folder. It will not, no matter what I did, save it to the desktop like I wanted, so I just have to go in directly and open the root folder as root. And here is our payload, so I will transfer it into the hosted directory, and then I will start Apache 2 services. So now we should be good to go. So now we have our payload sitting in our hosted Apache 2 folder. We have a listener sitting here and waiting. So all we have to do is transfer it over to the Windows computer and then launch it. So it seems to me, the actual process of setting this up and launching it to me seems a little bit less cumbersome than what Metasploit does. So now I will go to the Windows computer. I will also make sure that, real-time protection is turned off. I'm in the ctools directory, so I will just do a curl 2.168.245. I believe it's 129. And that was payload.exe. Oops. Did I not call that right? Payload.exe. So something did not execute correctly. Okay, so what did not work? Payload.exe. Did I miss something? Curl HTTP. Oh, I think I missed. It's 245. I got the IP address wrong. Okay, there's my payload. I will run it as an administrator. I will go back to my Kali Linux, and you can see now I have my actual callbacks going. So they have two views here once you've actually gotten your connection established. You have the table view, which will just show you all the initial information, like the process ID number and the name of the computer. But what probably is more interesting is if you go to View, Session View, and Graph. it actually gives you an icon. This is a feature that they took from Cobalt Strike. So the more computers that you add, the more icons are going to appear on here. And you can interact with them directly by just right-clicking on the icon itself. So the first thing you can do once you've established a connection is to right-click on it, and you can say interact, and a new tab will appear, and you can enter commands on the bottom. So you can start off by saying help, and these are all the commands that you can run, and you can actually increase the size of the font. But you can also list all the processes on the machine directly by clicking on the process list. I don't think it's going to let me. So that won't increase in font size, but we're going to be using one of the processes in just a few minutes. So it also allows you to look through the files directly. This is something that's a little bit more easy to use than the Meterpreter, because the Meterpreter requires you to actually go in and use file system commands to actually list everything. Here it will enumerate all of the processes, and it will enumerate all of the files on the file system for you directly. So that is a feature which is a little bit more intuitive and convenient. But for right now, I have created on my first connection. So the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new session by doing process injection. Process injection is another form of attack in which you can use for I forgot the term, but if you want to stay on the persistence was the word I'm trying to find. But you can also do it if you wish to try and move around the network. Shellcode injection is a way to do that, and this provides an interface to make it a little bit easier. Just a word about some of the commands that we're going to be using. You can see there's a number of tabs that are appeared on here. It's that every time you have launched one of the features within Havoc, it will be listed as a tab. So we've got our one listener, but these are a list of many of the programs the commands that you can run individually. You also see some labeled module. Some of these modules are other programs that have been incorporated, into the Havoc infrastructure. So they have to be called upon and run using some different commands. What I'm going to have you do after you install all this on Wednesday is I'm going to list a number of these commands that are listed here and have you execute these. But one of these, some of these do not work as well as the Meterpreter though. I tried samdump, which does the same thing in the Meterpreter as hash dump. Once you have increased your privileges, you should be able to do a hash dump in Meterpreter. I have tried. I'm not going to try it again here, but I will demonstrate escalating privileges here before I do shellcode injection. One of the commands that you're going to use is something called token, because in the other class we went over these things called tokens, which are kind of like cookies. They are files which retain information about a user's privilege levels and things they have access to. And you can individual processes have tokens associated with them. And one way of actually elevating your privileges is to do something called token stealing. So within Havoc, you can do something like COVID get UID will tell us what our current privileges are. And you can see every time you send a command, it tasks the agent. So you can see we are currently a low-level pedestrian user. But if we want to increase, we have to get it to list all of the the tokens that we can steal that are of the permissions that we need. But first, see if there are any commands that you do not understand, there is a feature within Havoc which, if you just type token or any of the commands and you type help, actually it's the other way around, help token. If you just type help in the name of the command, it will actually give you a description of the command, and it will even give you an example of how to use it. So with token, we want to do a token find because it's going to find the tokens that we can make use of. Okay, so we want system level privileges. So in order to do this, you can see the command that we have to use is token steal, and then use a process ID. So token steal, and then the PID we want is 760. So now we can check our privilege level again. And now we have NT Authority system level privileges. So we should be able to do things now like dump passwords, get persistence, and even move laterally. The problem with some of these other tasks is, it's fairly easy to increase your privilege level in Havoc, but some of the other tasks require the use of external programs. One of these is persistence. The use cases I saw use something called sharpersist, which is an executable that was written in C#. And it does something called inline execution. So what you'll have to do is download the sharpersist executable separately to your Kali Linux machine, and then you provide a full path, and what Havoc does is it executes it directly in memory. So it's not on the disk. See, that's one of the ways that attackers will try to circumvent getting picked up by Windows Defender. It's because as soon as a file hits disk, the odds of it being detected are significantly higher. It's not a fail-safe method of running it in memory, but if you take a couple of other measures, running it directly in memory decreases the likelihood that it's going to get picked up. So sharpersist is one of the ways in which you can get persistence on your target machine, but that is an executable that has to be loaded and run separately using an inline execution command. So another of these is the dumping of password hashes. I already showed you there's a command called samdump, but I was unable to get that to work the last time I ran it, so that's another one I will probably have to take a look at. That may also require something like Mimikatz. You can actually run Mimikatz directly in memory. That would probably actually work better than their local command. But the one thing I'm going to demonstrate now is the shellcode injection. So in order to do that, they have we will look at the help inject. Let's see, I'll just look up all of the shellcode. Okay, so it's shellcode inject. Help shellcode inject. So if we look at the help here, we can inject shellcode directly into a remote process, and the syntax for this is shellcode inject. We have to provide the architecture for the Windows system that we're attacking. Most likely it's going to be 64-bit. We provide the PID of the remote process, and then the full path of where the binary, the shellcode, is located. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I've already got the command written down here, so I don't have to type in everything and hope that it works. I still have to create the shellcode. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new daemon as shellcode. So this will be a daemon using the same listener, 64-bit architecture, but we're going to choose the shellcode option. So just in my view, this is part of the popularity of Havoc is just the fact that its interface is much more intuitive. It has incorporated a lot of visual, eye candy to it, like the icons, which also makes running certain features a little bit easier. So it also has the modularized, if that's a word, architecture. So you can install the team server separately and have multiple people all join the team server so you could all work as a team in certain environments. So now we have created our daemon. I'll just call it shellcode for simplicity. And once again, it has saved it to the root directory. Okay, so actually home. I'm going to open. So I'm going to put it on the desktop. I'm going to go to root. There's our shellcode file. I've moved it to the desktop. And now the only thing we have to do is we have to get the current process ID number for our shellcode. So we can go back to our process list, and since we have already escalated our privileges, we can inject our code into a process that has system level privileges, like LSAS. So I'm going to look for LSAS. Here it is. It's 832. So if I go back to here, I can change the PID to 32. And this is the full path and name of the shellcode payload that we've created. So if all goes well, we task our daemon, and there we have a second session. So each time within this same listener that you create a new session or another user is able to compromise it, you'll get another icon show up. So if you actually get another machine, you can actually have the entire chain showing up here in graphical form. So this is the basic walkthrough of installation and usage. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.